Hey guys, so I've been working on this character for a while. This is probably going to be my final character this league. I still have a couple upgrades I want to make to it, but it's at the point now where I want to show it off. And I want to give you guys some information about this character too, because I think it's actually really useful if you're trying to make an int-stacker. So I wanted to make an int-stacker that uses KB, because KB got buffed this league, and the Haunted Spirits enchants seemed cool. Everyone who's playing int-stacker right now is pretty much playing Trickster, because the new bases are super overpowered on Trickster, and you can get up to like 20,000 energy shield relatively easily on Trickster. The problem is most people who are doing Trickster builds are not doing Wanders. They're doing like Bow Trickster or Ephemeral Edge Trickster, which are using different skills that are a lot more powerful single target to do their damage. Kinetic Blast historically has just never been that great at single target damage, and it got buffed this league, so it does more than it ever has, but it just still isn't that much. So that being said, I wanted to make a character that could do the single target DPS and do all the content. So I tried to do Trickster at first and just, brute force it with dual wield wands and try to put enough damage into it that it could do the DPS single target with only 1 KB in its links, and it just never really worked. At best, I got the Trickster to the point where it could do a T17 map boss in like a minute, which is too slow for me. It could do all content in the game. It's just like, if you're trying to juice content and do the highest version of it, where you're running like hard versions of the maps with the best scarabs, the maps just get a lot harder. So spending that long on map bosses and like dying sometimes just felt really unsatisfying, and so I decided to roll off Trickster and try something else. And so I decided to try Warden because it's the new ascendancy, and there's a lot of OP things about it that people have been talking about. One thing that people have talked about that I want to try is the freezing Oath of Winter, but this build doesn't do cold damage, so it doesn't really work on this build. But the other thing that's really OP about Trickster is tinctures. So if we look at my 2 tinctures, they have absolute ridiculous numbers on them, and that is before the tincture effect. So I also have somewhere around 50 tincture effect if you add up all the tincture effect on my tree and my ascendancy. So with all this tincture effect, I'm basically almost doubling these insane numbers. And so what does that do to my DPS? Well, right now my KB is doing 32 million per projectile, so that's not even counting the explosion, and that's not counting the fact that I shoot multiple KB projectiles per shot. So this is per projectile. If I were to take off my tinctures, I go all the way down to 5 million DPS. So this is effectively multiplying my DPS by 6 by putting on these 2 tinctures, which is unheard of. Adding a single link, like if I were to take out my best link, which is volatility, that drops me less than dropping one of my tinctures. I could drop all 3 of my damage links and I still do more DPS than I would without my tinctures. So my tinctures are absolutely carrying my DPS, and this is so prevalent in fact that this character has the same gear that my Trickster did. If my Trickster had these links, so these same exact support gems on a KB, it was only doing 2 million DPS. This character does 32 million. 16 times more DPS, mainly contributed through the fact that it has all of these damage links, like Oath of Spring and the tinctures, mainly the tinctures. So now my character does a ton of damage, and I also managed to fit a Headhunter in. Before I had a Mage Blood, the one problem with taking off a Mage Blood is your resistances go away, but it's really hard to justify a Mage Blood when you have 2 tinctures because you can't run a Dying Sun and Utility Flask, basically. So you want to run a Mage Blood where you're utilizing all 4 flask, and so without that, it's not really worth it in my opinion. So I decided to switch to a Headhunter, and to do that all I had to do was put in a Purity of Elements and change my large cluster so it had all elemental resistance instead. There's other things you could do to get even more res in this build if you needed to. I'm a Lyra right now, so that gives me more res. I could also have more res on this jewel. I could have more res on a couple pieces of gear. There's a lot of places you can get res. The only thing that matters after you drop Mage Blood is you make sure you're still res capped. The tinctures are going to carry you in damage. Your wands are going to carry you in damage. Your other pieces don't even matter that much. Your other pieces don't matter so much actually that I have part of my showcase that shows me doing a map, a T17 map, with the GULL on, which is the shrine helm, because it helps juice the strat more. I think the showcase speaks for itself. I hope you guys enjoy. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I think this build's incredible. POB will be linked in the description. Enjoy.